It's another edition of Inside Coverage on Yahoo. Thanks for being here today, friends. Once again from the home office in sunny Southern California. Hope wherever you are warm and the driveway is shoveled. My name is Andrew Siciliano. We have now only two coaching openings, one in Vegas, one in Arizona. The Cleveland Browns have hired former Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken. I know you didn't see that coming. Frankly, I don't know that I saw that coming. We will get to that. We will get to a Super Bowl preview because we have a guy joining us today who is not only a burgeoning media star, he's also still an active player. You can hear him this week on Wednesday night on SiriusXM NFL Radio, the Player Point Show with Dolphins fullback Alec Ingold. Sometimes also former wide receiver Allen Robinson on that show as well. He has a TV career, certainly in his bright future, and he is the longest tenured player on any one team in the National Football League. He is the long snapper of the Carolina Panthers, a former Pro Bowler, 18 years in the league, J.J. Jansen, if you include the year in Green Bay. How the heck are you, my friend? Good to see you.
I'm good. I'm doing well. Good to see you, my friend. It's good to be face to face. We text and chat from time to time. Eye to eye is good. My claim to fame in my 1 year in Green Bay was I was teammates with Brett Favre for one day, and then he showed back up and got traded to the Jets. So I never get to meet him. I saw him from across the locker room when he was doing his physical, and never got a chance. But maybe someday. Who knows?
You didn't walk up there with the jersey of Autumn Modell's that morning, or Sport Bart and say, "Hey, buddy, could you sign this?"
No, and in fact, it's so funny now you think about it, but my time up there, everybody hated Aaron Rodgers because he wasn't Brett Favre, and he did the full career arc there where he was beloved, maybe hated again, and then all the way back around. They love Aaron, and but man, I was a rookie. I was like, that was kind of my welcome to the NFL moment because I was like, they are openly booing the starting quarterback for the Packers because the other guy just got shipped to New York. So football comes at you fast.
Yeah, no kidding. Life comes at you fast at a lot of levels and in a lot of different businesses. I was reading a story about the Steelers and their locker clean-out day, the day that Tomlin walked in and said, "All right, guys, I'm retiring." And people were stunned. But the day opened with, the article had Rodgers signing all these jerseys for teammates in front of his locker, and that Andrus Peat, the veteran offensive tackle that finished the year there in Pittsburgh, handed him a jersey that still had the tags on it from the local sporting goods store. And Rodgers shrugged his shoulders and went, "No, I got it." And he went and found a game-worn jersey, and he gave that to Andrus Peat, which is obviously cool and a keepsake.
Fantastic.
Give to his kids one day. Have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen guys buy jerseys for teammates at a sporting goods store to get signed?
No, I don't think I've ever seen. No, a little bit. That'll happen a lot. But usually they at least couch it with, this is for my cousin, this is for my friend. I don't know that I've ever.
This is for the neighbor.
Yeah, exactly. It happens a lot around Christmas. Neighbors of athletes decide that they're going to knock on the door of their professional athlete neighbor and say, "Can you help me out with my Christmas shopping?" And so inevitably there's a lot of memorabilia getting signed inside the building. Usually, and then again, I was very blessed. I asked McCaffrey for a jersey after we played them on Monday night in San Francisco, and I realized that Chuba Hubbard already got to him. And so there is a little bit of gamesmanship when it comes to jerseys and swapping, but I don't think I've ever seen anyone just go to the sporting goods store for their own personal collection. So that's a new one. I like that. And kudos to Aaron for just saying, here's a game-worn one. I'm so particular about my jersey that I don't really like trading it because it's fitting just right. But I guess if you're like Aaron or Tom Brady or all these guys that are beloved players, they probably just have multiple ones they're just pulling off over and over again. So I guess you probably get used to the custom fit each week.
Do long snappers trade jerseys? Do you have a Charlie Hewlett, Jake McQuaid collection in your basement, all the guys like you that have been in one place or had been at one place forever?
I've got a few of them. I got John Weeks, who's a long snapper in Houston forever. He's now in San Francisco. Scott Daly, who went to Notre Dame, was there not that long after I was there. I got a Lions jersey from him. I need a McQuaid for the Rams. I'm trying to think if I have any others. Clint Gresham was the long snapper in Seattle all those years that we were competing against them for NFC championships. So I've got about 4 or 5. I do not have a full collection. I'm planning on playing another couple of years, so I probably need to get on that while all my buddies are still in the league. Well, I'm still in the league.
Want to see you get to 20, because that would be ridiculous. Speaking of buddies, all right, so you're going to be out there doing your show for Sirius on Radio Row in San Francisco. You played the Patriots, you played the Seahawks. We'll get to the game coming up in a second. But your buddy Luke Kuechly is up for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We all agree he's a Hall of Famer. The question is, does he get in first ballot? There's a report today that Eli Manning is not getting in, which may raise some eyebrows, has his 2 Lombardi trophies, the victories over the Patriots. But the story last night that has not only shaken the football world, JJ, but I think shaken the entire sports world, the president of all people is weighing in as well, not surprising, is that Bill Belichick didn't get enough votes to go in as a first ballot Hall of Famer. I made the case last night that if you just go post-scandal, if you even want to call it Deflategate a scandal, but let's do that as the line of demarcation. Post-scandal, he has 100 career victories, including the postseason, 3 trips to the Super Bowl, and 2 Lombardi trophies. That alone is a Hall of Fame career. There are coaches with fewer wins, Tom Flores, for example, in the Hall, than 100. Bill Belichick, that career alone is a Hall of Famer. This is ridiculous from where I stand. I think most people agree. Do you disagree? Yeah. Feel free. I want you to.
No, I'd actually take it one step further. I think he's had 3 separate Hall of Fame careers. You have the second run in New England, the first run in New England, and his time as an assistant for Bill Parcells with the Giants and legendary game plan versus the Bills in the 1990 Super Bowl. I believe that's actually in the Hall of Fame. He has transcended 50 years of NFL coaching. He's been a special teams coach, defensive coordinator, head coach at multiple places. I saw a joke, and I think it's timely given the Browns today, that he should get into the Hall of Fame based purely on the fact he got the Browns to the playoffs. Then I think they want to play.
Wait, they won the game. I was at the game. Yeah, I was at the game. That was the Browns' last home playoff win. It was the 92, 93 season, whatever it was, 94, whatever it was. I'm embarrassed I don't remember. I was a student in college. I drove into Cleveland. My Aunt Marianne and I went to the game, and Bill Belichick and Vinny Testaverde at quarterback, Mark Carrier, the former Buccaneer, the veteran at wide receiver, catching a tight touchdown. Leroy Horde caught a touchdown, and they beat Bill Parcells and Drew Bledsoe. So, yes, he won a playoff game with the Browns.
Mark Carrier is the first Carolina Panther in history. I think he was the initial pick in the expansion draft in 95 and was in our player development. I mean, there's lots of connections. So maybe 4 NFL or 4 Hall of Fame careers for Bill Belichick. I think we all had on our bingo card Bill Belichick uniting America in their love of him, but rightfully so. He's easily one of the 2 greatest, probably the greatest head coach. I always think to myself about like a guy like Bill Walsh, but I think Bill Belichick is the greatest NFL head coach of all time. And the fact that he's not allowed to have sort of that first ballot, that extra whatever that is to make you the first ballot Hall of Famer is crazy. As a friend of Luke's who watched this process go on last year, I can say that as much as we'd all love to say people had it out for Bill, or because he was a bit of a curmudgeon during press conferences that they didn't want to vote for him, I do think that the process is broken. Knowing a little bit, digging deep and reading some articles on how they're voting for the Hall of Fame, the voting process gets very tricky. And if anybody doesn't just try to vote for the best 2 or 3 or 4 and tries to game the system to get maybe that number 4 or 5 guy up into the voting process, you can have a process like this where I'd imagine 50 voters all thought Bill Belichick was a first ballot Hall of Famer. But if 11 of them either have it out for him, don't think he's a first ballot, or think, well, everyone else is going to vote for him, I'll vote for my guy, and all of a sudden you turn around and he's only got 39 votes and everyone looks kind of silly. So I don't think it's some great conspiracy, although for a head coach that has multiple gates to his name, Votergate would make sort of a fitting ending for Belichick. But he'll be in next year. He's the greatest coach in NFL history.
Yeah, I feel like this is a bit of a public shaming, as if his record at North Carolina and everything off the field hasn't shamed him enough publicly, fair or not. And I feel, yeah, there is a lot of, he was a pain in the butt to us when he was a coach, that I think probably comes back to bite him, and that is ridiculously unfair.
Of course.
I get it. Personal politics invade every aspect of our life. Personal interactions are never forgotten. I totally understand it, but it's unfair in this regard. I also don't blame people if they think that some penance must be paid for the scandals. He is not without scandal. He was caught cheating. Mm-hmm. Patriot fans want to scream back at me. Fine, whatever. He's still a Hall of Famer. He's still a first ballot Hall of Famer. He has my vote. I think it's ridiculous he's not in. But both can be true. He was also caught cheating. Now, you could say, no, he wasn't. Yes, he was. Period. It happened. You can't erase it. He's still a Hall of Fame coach on the very first ballot and the greatest coach of all time. You could push back on Paul Brown and other pioneers and Hallis and Lombardi, and Shula obviously has the win total. He has that record still. Right. But you cannot write the history of the National Football League without Bill Belichick. There's a reason that for the NFL 100 show, Rich Eisen is in Mount Laurel at NFL Films with Bill Belichick as his co-host, as the leading historian of the game, while still an active coach. And that should mean something.
And I do think that's what's kind of sad about this whole process. There's lots of players and coaches that say, hey, I don't need the Hall of Fame. If I get in, I get in. They all want to, but that happens.
Everybody does.
But there's never been a greater advocate for the game, historian of the game. Mm-hmm. If you talk to anybody that ever played for Bill in New England, they would talk about these legendary team meetings that would go on for an hour or 2 hours that was just teaching the game through the history. As a specialist, I have listened to the 14 minutes on the history of the long snapper going back to Steve Diassi, the 9 minutes on why he chose left-footed punters for 14 consecutive years.
Same.
He's a historian. He loves the game. His dad was revolutionary. I read, his dad, I believe Steve Belichick, his book, The Art of Scouting. It feels so unnecessary, because if anybody should be in the Hall of Fame for not only their performance on the field, but holding up the history of the game, it's this man. And so, again, he'll probably be 50 out of 50 next year, but it just feels so unnecessary. And again, we've all now united behind him. In a weird way, it's probably the first time we've all been in agreement of who Bill Belichick is, and it's the greatest coach in the history of our game.
It's kind of surprising that it comes from the media, because believe me, I've heard a lot over the years. I know you have as well, probably, but at the ownership level or the coaching level or the GM level of people going, bleep that guy, to be honest with you. He rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Sure. The organization did. The entire organization did. Some of it, the cynic might say, well, you're just jealous. Maybe. Who knows? I'm not saying me, but there's a lot of stuff I've heard over the years where they did not want to do that guy any favors. If it had come down to a vote of those people that, might have a few drinks at a cocktail party at the Super Bowl and get upset about it, or say make snide comments about him, if it came down to those people, then this vote wouldn't surprise me. But the media, even if he had been a pain in the butt on the podium, it does surprise me. Real quick on Kuechly, you think Luke's getting in? Any idea?
Yeah, I think he's getting in. Again, this new process that's going on at the Hall of Fame is, I think all 50 voters are sort of learning this new process. It's not just an up or down. If you don't vote for the best player on the ballot, the second best player on the ballot, then you kind of end up looking a little silly. I think it's happening right now on the coaches and contributors side with Belichick. I think last year, I think there was certainly an argument that Antonio Gates was in, and that made a lot of sense. But after that, I didn't see, in full respect to Eric Allen and Jared Allen, who I played with, but Luke Kuechly is a Hall of Famer, and he did it in 8 years, 7 All-Pros, Defensive Player of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year. The only argument I've ever heard against Luke was, well, he didn't play very long. And my retort has always been, but he did all the Hall of Fame things, and it only took him 8 years. If he had kept playing, he would have just kept adding even more to this unbelievable career. Again, I think some people hold a little bit different standard for first ballot that I don't think will play out again the second time around. And I think the other part is there's probably a few guys that thought, oh, he's the best player on the 2025 ballot. I don't have to vote for him to maybe get somebody else in, and then realize, oh, I didn't get him in. I'm going to make this right and get him in. So I fully expect him to be in. He was the greatest middle linebacker of the 2010s, and that included Bobby Wagner, who will also be a Hall of Famer when his career is done. So fantastic player, all-time great teammate, and made everybody else around him better. And he's an all-time great guy. One of my close personal friends, and again, just a great player, great teammate. So hopefully in about 8 days or now at NFL Honors, we'll all be hearing his name, and well-deserved.
Last thing on the hall from me, you mentioned, well, he didn't play long enough. Neither did Gale Sayers or Terrell Davis. They both had injuries. Luke decided to walk away for reasons other than necessarily the injuries, although I know the game took a toll. You can't have it both ways when you're looking at the hall. There are people that say, well, Frank Gore, or maybe even 15 years ago, Art Monk, they were never great. They just played forever. Well, you can't hold longevity in the most physical sport on earth against a player and in the same breath go, well, this guy didn't play long enough. Like, you can't have it both ways. Longevity is like something to be proud of in this game.
Absolutely.
Like, same with you as well. Like, no one holds it against you that you played forever. I know you're not getting 28 carries a game and you're not Frank Gore. I understand that. But you play a physical sport, and anyone that can last that long should be commended. It should not be held against them that they had a long career and were able to stay healthy. All right, coaching search. We're talking about this a little bit off the air. Some people surprised on the Todd Monken hire. Nate Shieldhouse was seemingly the leader in the clubhouse, 35 years old, young offensive assistant from the Rams, had not called plays in the NFL, had called plays for 1 year under Matt Campbell at Iowa State. In the end, the Browns decide to go for experience. I've talked to a couple of assistant coaches around the league today that both said, wow, they got themselves a really good coach. One coach in the AFC North said to me, I'm glad he's not, rather flip that around. One coach in the AFC North told me today, I wish he wasn't in the division. Like, I'm happy for him, but I wish it came outside of our division. It's an unconventional hire. What do you think, JJ?
Well, my first thought was Todd Monken was the reason I thought the Giants hit a home run with Jackson Dart and John Harbaugh. He was fantastic the last 3 years in Baltimore. Lamar's best 3 passer ratings of his career were in the last 3 years with Todd Monken. Won the national championship at Georgia. He's had a lot of success everywhere he's gone. And I know he spent a great deal of his career in college, but if you can coach ball, you can coach ball. And the game is becoming more and more crossed over. And we saw that the last 3 years in Baltimore. As far as Cleveland goes, obviously there's still a ton that's being turned over. Everything that's going on with Jim Schwartz, their defensive coordinator, who's under contract. Certainly it feels like one of the big holdups was sort of finding someone that wanted to pair with one of the very best defensive coordinators in the NFL. And it's hard to find elite coordinators on both sides of the ball in year one of a coaching staff. Usually you have to kind of develop the staff. Ron Rivera, my old head coach, used to say it takes 3 years to kind of fully develop a staff. So if you've got a defensive staff in place, and the Browns have been excellent for multiple years now on the defensive side, I get why they'd want to not lose that as they pursued a young coach. So Todd Monken hasn't been an NFL head coach, maybe a little bit more eager to sort of piecemeal it together in year one. So we'll see. I certainly understand how Shieldhouse or Udinsky or some of these other guys don't want to necessarily have sort of an arranged marriage. I get it. They're also young and have a ton of opportunities, but you just don't know how any of these coaching searches are going to go until you get everybody on the field, you go through the draft, and you begin to develop the roster.
Yeah, absolutely. And whether or not Schwartz stays, it remains to be seen at this hour. He was not thrilled and reportedly left the building, and he was interviewed twice, wanted the job, and is upset that somebody other than himself getting the job. I totally understand that. Hopefully they can figure that out. If not, they have other options on that staff, or maybe Todd Monken wants to bring somebody with him. But he is a darn good coach. And your point about Jackson Dart is the point I made earlier as well. They wanted Jackson Dart to be developed by Todd Monken. That is the guy that John Harbaugh was bringing with him. John Harbaugh and the Giants were waiting on Todd Monken to figure this thing out in Cleveland. And if it wasn't Cleveland, he was going to be there, and he was being tossed the keys to get Jackson Dart to where he needs to be the franchise quarterback. Now the Giants have to pivot and figure something else out. The first hire on the offensive side is George Warhop, the veteran offensive line coach, beg your pardon, who is coming with Monken from Baltimore. I was speaking with Joe Thomas today, Hall of Fame offensive lineman, who played for Warhop when he was there the first time around under Mangini and Shermer, and said basically he is his favorite O-line coach he has played for. He thinks he is Callahan level, and he thinks it is a home run hire, and he could not be more excited that George Warhop is coming back. So if you get the Joe Thomas stamp of approval, so far so good for me. I know Joe's word carries a lot of weight with Browns fans, who understandably might have some reservations because they were getting their hopes up on the young offensive guy. You're getting the older offensive guy. I think it works. JJ, stay there. I want to pick your brain on your team and kind of tie the bow on your playoff season, and then look ahead to Santa Clara. You're watching and listening to Inside Coverage on Yahoo. All right, it's Inside Coverage on Yahoo. I'm loving this, my wingman today. And by the way, I did mention Austin Mock from The Athletic is here, coming up shortly. We're excited to have Austin here. There's a lot of great analytics work and writing for The Athletic on the football side. We'll get his look as well, not only on Santa Clara and the Super Bowl, but the big board as well, because it is draft season and everything's going on in Mobile. But J.J. Jansen is back with me, 18 years in the NFL, 17 with the Carolina Panthers as their long snapper. Let's focus on the Panthers here. Let's put a nice bow on it. Now that you're a couple of weeks removed, you guys won the division, you made the playoffs, you fought to the very end, final possession there with the Rams and Matthew Stafford before bowing out in the wild card round. Now that you've had time to reflect, what do we think of the 2025 Carolina Panthers?
Well, the biggest thing that I felt the entire year was it felt for me a lot like the 2013 Panthers, where you had a young group, the young players were starting to develop, but they kind of had to learn how to win. And in 13, we got on a long, hot streak and ultimately won the division that year. This year, it was a little bit clunkier, a little bit more up and down, but it was also kind of a lot of our contributors were rookies, right? Teteroa McMillan was a huge contributor. Jalen Coker is a second-year guy. Bryce is only in year 3. On the defensive side, Nick Scorton was a huge contributor at one edge rush. So we're still a very young team. So to win your division, win 8 games, and have some big wins. I know the 8-9 thing was kind of weird, and certainly how you got in, rooting for Atlanta on the last day of the season was a very strange environment for us to be in. But we went to Lambeau and beat a very good Packers team. We beat the Rams earlier in the year. We played up to the quality of our opponents a lot. So that gave us a lot of confidence. And I think the biggest thing for this group is 2 years ago, we were 2-15. We never had the lead in the fourth quarter, the entire game. We won on 2 game-winning field goals as time expired. That group, through the work of Dan Morgan and Brant Tillis and Dave Canales, is now 8-9, won the division, played the Rams to 2 really hard-fought games in Charlotte. We won 1, we lost 1. Stafford and that offense is fantastic. We played Seattle tough. We had a chance to beat them in the fourth quarter. We got a tough face mask call with 10 minutes to go. Otherwise, we're getting the ball back down 7 with a chance to win at home. Like, there was a lot of high moments. We've got to build more consistency. But what Dan Morgan and Brant Tillis have done really well in their first 2 years is drafting a lot of really good football players, guys that love ball, are all about it. That's a tough thing to do, is year after year draft guys that really want to play and want to be there, especially in this NIL world where guys are paid. So, a lot of guys are showing up with a lot more money now than they ever did, certainly when I was young. So finding guys that really want to play at a high level and that it was a really positive thing. We won a bunch of games in the division. There's still plenty of steps for us to take. We have by no means arrived, but it was a really successful season on a lot of ways, and we got to find the next step in 2026.
A lot of people pointed to the Rams' loss to you guys in Charlotte, and then how close that game was in the wild card round, and they knocked the Rams. I looked at it the other way, and I said, no, Ejiro is there, Jonathan Cooley is there, Nick Scott, Christian Roseboom. Like, you have all these former LA guys, Bobby Brown. You have this institutional knowledge, if you will, and that means something. Like, everyone knows everyone in this league. Obviously, players make plays, but coaches can put players in position to make plays, and you guys had a blueprint, and that was one of the more impressive victories of the regular season. Same goes for that win at Lambeau. You guys went up there and you stunned the Packers and you stunned the NFL world. And in both of those games, Bryce made big plays. I talk a lot with a lot of people about leadership and like what leadership looks like at the player level. And I think Nick Chubb's a good example here. Like, not all leaders are loud, right? Mm-hmm. Not all leaders are the guy that's screaming and yelling in the middle of the huddle, and that's what's in the game open on your 3-hour broadcast on Sunday at 1 or 4 o'clock Eastern time. What kind of leader is Bryce Young?
Yeah, A'Shawn Robinson, another former Ram, is that guy. He's the yelling screamer.
Another guy.
But on the other hand is Bryce. He's a very quiet leader. And what I mean by that is he is soft-spoken. He doesn't choose to say a whole lot. But when push comes to shove, when he speaks up, there's some juice behind it. He pulled the whole team aside right at the halftime of that game in Charlotte in the wild card round and said, hey, this is our moment. Here we are. But he didn't do that 17 other times over the course of the year where you begin to tune out certain personalities. He was waiting for his spot. And I think as you're sort of you're coming out for the second half, you're like, hey, the quarterback is confident. He's ready to attack the defense. We were in a close game, and he just felt like when the fourth quarter showed up, and this was not just in the wild card round, but the entire year, he had the cool, calm collectedness to really take on whatever the fourth quarter came at us. And we were one of the very best fourth quarter teams because of Bryce, because of his calm demeanor. But there was this fiery element that when the time was right, whether it was in Charlotte for the wild card or in Atlanta back in week 10, when that was a big game that we needed to get back into the division, he had the juice in the locker room or on the sideline to get the guys right. And he's been a great leader. He continues to grow. He's very young. And I think what we're seeing with the Sam Darnolds of the world and the Baker Mayfields of the world is these young players, there is a development process that has to keep happening. And 23, 24, 25 years old, these are young players that are developing into their NFL personalities, and Bryce is no different, and he's continued to take unbelievable steps in that process.
I'm glad you mentioned Baker because they had a 4 or 5 year stranglehold on the NFC South. Baker obviously welcomed Kevin Stefanski to Atlanta. On Twitter, they have their history. Baker and Kevin won a playoff game, coulda, woulda, shoulda beaten the Chiefs in Kansas City in 2020, and maybe this whole story looks different. But obviously, they have they had whatever it was. Kevin, of course, took the high road this week. He seems rejuvenated. I think he's going to do really well. He's got a lot of weapons there, and he's got pieces now on defense. Not that he didn't in Cleveland have a defense, but whatever. I think he's going to do well. But through all of this, right, I felt like raising my hand and saying, the Panthers won the division, guys. Now, that game in New Orleans, it could have swung to either way, week 18. But you guys won the, like, is there any part of you, JJ, or any part of the Carolina locker room going like, hey, you guys can tweet at each other all day. You got to come through us. We won the division.
Yeah, I did have to laugh, right? Like, at the end of the day, like, we're now the division champs, and they've been it for a number of years, going back to when Tom was there. But we are proud to have won the division, and we believe that everything's got to come through us. That being said, we still want to be the attacking team in the division. It's fun to be the hunter. Sometimes it stinks to be the hunted. So we've got plenty of big fish to fry, but ultimately Baker, Stefanski, Kellen Moore, and Shuck down in New Orleans, they got to come through us.
All right. Early in the season, you guys faced the Patriots. You lost, but then you got on a little winning streak after that. When you lost to them, it was early in the year. You fell to 1-3. Late in the season, you faced Seattle in December, a game you really needed to win. You didn't win, but you still got in. What is your early read after watching the championship games and seeing these two teams that you guys know in Santa Clara?
Well, my first instinct is Sam Darnold's playing really good football. He was here in Carolina for a couple of years, and he has found a great home in Seattle, continuing on what he did last year in Minnesota. That Seattle defense is really, really good, but so is New England's. New England has been fantastic all postseason long. I know there's been some snow. I know there's been some rain. It has been a more defensive, favorable environments for the Patriots. But let's not forget, like, their offense has to still operate in that. And I've been very impressed with Drake May. I know that his postseason numbers have not been what they were in the regular season, but they faced the first, third, and fifth best defenses in the NFL and in unfavorable weather conditions. So I've been really impressed with May. I think Mike Vrabel right now is the very best CEO game day head coach in football. He just continues to manage situations well. End of half, substitutions. We saw 2 straight weeks managing defensive substitutions late in games to help milk clock. They've got a really good thing. And I think Josh McDaniels has all of the postseason history in New England. I think the biggest advantage right now that no one's talking about is both of these teams, it's all new players, it's all new coaches. But Josh McDaniels, Mike Vrabel have been to a number of Super Bowls in New England. And I think that managing the run up for 2 weeks, it was the toughest part about our run in 2015. Denver had been a few years prior. It's just tricky managing the media, managing the travel, the tickets. And then you get to Sunday, and that's the biggest day of the year, and you're exhausted from 2 weeks. And so the team that manages that usually plays better. And I always think there's a slight advantage to the team that the organization knows what's going on. And New England's been there very recently, and Vrabel, McDaniels, and others have been a part of that process many times over.
You happy for Sam? Do you think he had it in him?
I always knew he had it in him. I am very happy. He's been through a lot of stuff, whether it was in New York. We had multiple coaching changes here in Carolina. I think getting to San Francisco 2 years ago, being the backup, getting some time with Kyle Shanahan, and just getting a chance to catch his breath really did him wonders. He played well their last game of the year 2 years ago in San Francisco, obviously goes and wins the job in Minnesota. And look, he's gotten 34 regular season starts and 3 postseason starts since all of that. And there's something to be said for being in a good environment and playing a bunch and continuing to develop as a player, right? He's only 27 years old. He's younger than Joe Burrow. Like, there's an element of development that I think we miss sometimes when we rush quarterbacks. This didn't happen pre, the rookie wage scale, because you kind of knew there was a development process. But now those picks are so valuable. We expect 21-year-olds to come in and carry teams to playoffs because we see it once every 5 years. Drake May's not helping my cause because he's doing it in year 2. But there's development process, and Sam's in a good environment, and that offense is well suited for him. He's big, physical, and athletic, and that team is built around the run game and taking shots, and Sam makes some plays with his legs when he has to.
All right, final thing, I promise. Short answer. Super Bowl 50, obviously. You were there back in Santa Clara. Did you sneak out of the locker room to watch Beyonce and Coldplay?
No, I did not. I didn't know that was an option. I didn't even know you could do that. When who was it? Evan McPherson for Cincinnati a few years back snuck out to see that whole Super Bowl with Snoop, and I haven't done it for that. Like, I knew that music pretty well. But I did not know that was an option. As a specialist, there's not a whole lot of...
Probably isn't. Well, if anyone could do it, like, not that, with all due respect, as people like to say, you got the specialists always go out early. You guys are always the first ones out there to get your work in. You could have done it, but you got Chris Martin doing that awkward like hop around the stage that he does.
Yes, I think you're totally oblivious when you're in these games, but McPherson had the right idea. I would have never thought of it. I've been too scared.
Oh, I'm glad we I'm glad we thought of having you on, JJ Jansen. Safe travels to Santa Clara. I'm only there a couple of days, but I hope to see you at Radio Row or elsewhere. Beer on me if and when
I'll take you up on it.
We do finally. All right, we'll do that when we finally connect, man. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks so much for having me. Thanks, Andrew.
You got it. Coming up, Austin Mock of The Athletic. What do the numbers tell us? An analytics view of the game in Santa Clara. That's coming up on Inside Coverage. It's Inside Coverage on Yahoo, and I want to thank JJ Jansen, a bright future in the media. He is already doing the show on Sirius. We had him at Broadcast Boot Camp with the NFL in Inglewood a couple of years ago. The guy's awesome, and he's going to keep playing. He might get 20 years out of it, and his Panthers played both, as we just mentioned, the Seahawks and the Patriots. So he has some unique insight. This guy's got a lot of unique insight as well. You read him all the time in The Athletic. We are very happy to have on live from snowy State College, Pennsylvania, Austin Mock of The Athletic. How bad is the snow, Austin?
Sunday, Monday was rough, but it's freezing cold, so it's not melting anytime soon. So we're wearing boots and we're trucking through.
All right. But you have the boots, you have the shovels, you guys have the snowplow. Like you guys are actually prepared for snow as opposed to, say, Texas or Louisiana or Mississippi, where there not prepared for the snow.
Yeah, the salt trucks came out early and they had plenty of snow plows. We were pretty good. I don't know if you wanted to travel during the bulk of the storm, but I would say Monday morning, next morning after, you were safe to go, which is definitely more prepared than the South is, because they don't get it that often.
No, they don't. Like, my mother's flying back. My parents are flying back to Virginia today. They were out of town, out of the country, and outside DC. And my mom said to my brother, "Hey, can you pick us up?" My brother said, "No, I can't get out of my driveway. What do you want me to do?" Like, sorry, like Uber, we love it, but we can't do it. Anyway, let's get. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, it's when you're not used to, even just the tires are a big difference. If you don't have the tires that it can deal with it, you're not going anywhere.
No, we don't have that issue in Southern California, except when it rains and the local news treats the rain like the snow. But we'll save that for another show. So if you go to the piece that you just posted on The Athletic, which, by the way, I do read every day, love it. It's my first go-to every single day for not only football, mostly football, but for everything else as well. Your projection model here, which was great leading up to the postseason, has the Seahawks as a 63% favorite and the Patriots at 37%. Austin, explain the model and how we got to that math.
Yeah, so basically the model takes in a bunch of different box score metrics, play-by-play data, even some charting data that we're seeing more and more out there, which, that's basically coverage data, blitzing, pressure data, all of that. It takes all of that in. It adjusts for opponent. So if you play an easier schedule, your numbers will get, regress down a little bit. And basically I take all that, put it into a model, and it's able to spit out how likely teams will win, how many points they're projected to win by, total points in the game. And that's where we have landed with the Seahawks being a favorite here going into the Super Bowl. Pretty sizable favorite, led by what my model believes is the best defense in football by a decent margin. That's mainly why the Seahawks are getting the big edge here with the 63% favorite.
Yeah, if you look at the defense, obviously they're the number one scoring defense in the NFL. What the Rams are able to do to them, 84, 85 points in those three games that LA played, but still 1-2 in those three games, despite scoring 27 points a game on average in those three games. How does that defense stack up against Drake May, who took 15 sacks in three games? And how do you account for the weather in the second half? Because the weather clearly skewed, you'd have to think, some of those offensive numbers.
Yeah, that's one of the tougher parts. Definitely when the weather, it's pretty rare that the games for 2.5 quarters, it was kind of normal-ish. I know it was chilly, and then it turned into like a small blizzard there for the fourth quarter. So that is a difficult thing to do. I do have weather adjustments in there, but yeah, the weird part about the Patriots this year mostly is they lit up everyone. They played a very easy schedule, mind you, but they absolutely dominated everybody. But the 3 games in the playoffs, they played good defenses in the Chargers, the Texans, and the Broncos. And the offense has looked poor, and it's looked very poor against pressure on the offensive line. Drake May, you mentioned the sacks that he's taken. There's been a lot of near sacks as well. I don't usually we talk about guys' clocks getting sped up as a bad thing, quarterbacks. I actually wish Drake Mays would get a little bit faster, because he's been teetering a couple times, even against the Broncos. I thought there were some that were close. So that'll be the big matchup for me, is how does that offensive line hold up? Do the Patriots go quick passing game? My model does not really love the matchup for the in the trenches for the Seahawks. The Seahawks also don't have to blitz to create pressure. That's another thing. Drake May has absolutely killed the blitz this year as well. So that's an edge here where the Seahawks are going to probably not blitz at all. They're going to disguise a lot of coverage looks. They're going to disguise where the rushers are coming from, and how the offensive line and Drake May handles that is probably the key to this game. And that's a pretty sizable impact in my model.
We're talking to Austin Mock here from The Athletic on Inside Coverage. Austin does great work with analytics and projection models for not only the NFL, like the games itself, but we're going to get to the draft coming up shortly as well on the big board that's been posted on The Athletic. I want to get to the schedule because Patriots fans get very sensitive about the schedule. The numbers here do not lie. They had a stunningly easy schedule. I mean, stunningly. It is what it is. It's not anybody's fault. They still had to go out there and win those games, and they won them, and they should be celebrated for that. Both can be true, as I like to say, and sometimes, Austin, I overuse that phrase. They had a shockingly easy schedule, and they're a very good team. But when you are trying to project the outcome of one game and one game only, how much weight do you put in to the hard, cold truth that they had an easy schedule?
Yeah, so like I said, everything gets adjusted based on your opponents. But one thing that I kind of check myself with when you're talking about easy schedule or hard schedules is the first team in the league and the last team in the league, they really aren't that different in the NFL. It's there's a big gap, but it's not like, hey, this is a 30-point favorite or something like that. You're talking about 2 touchdowns that's the extreme of it. So, and again, the Raiders, who were picking number 1 in the draft, beat the Patriots early in the year. So, it's anybody can win on any given day. So my numbers do account for that. It is tough. The Patriots, because they I said going into playoffs, they basically played the Bills and the Steelers were like the 3 best teams they played. So yeah, very historic. It's tough. The one thing that I'll say to kind of back up Patriots fans is they absolutely crushed bad teams pretty much all year long. And that's what you really want to see. If you see teams kind of struggling with teams, I think we kind of saw that with the Chiefs this year. They never really distanced themselves. That's one thing that I'll give the Patriots credit for is when they played those bad teams, they usually beat them by a lot. But yeah, my numbers account for that. It's tough. It's one of the, it's hard to predict games in the NFL, no matter if you're using a model or not. But yeah, you look at raw numbers, Patriots probably look like the better team, but you do have to adjust them down because of how easy that schedule was.
The strength of schedule is always so interesting, too, because for years, like doing the schedule release show, let's say on NFL Network, where you get to training camp and you sit there, you go team to team, day by day, and you're like, all right, today we're with the Dolphins, or today we're with the Falcons. And you're looking at the schedule, and the strength of schedule is X, Y, and Z. And I always say, but once the games start, you almost have to throw that out because last year doesn't matter that much. Like right now, if I'm correct, I believe the Browns have the quote-unquote, I'm going to use air quotes here, easiest schedule for 2026. That's because the AFC North plays the NFC South next year. Well, the AFC East just played the NFC South last year. That's why the Patriots have all those NFC South opponents on there, and they were able to blow through that division. What that division looks like once we get through free agency, the new league year, and the draft in September as compared to now, Who knows? The Falcons, I think, for my money, are better with Kevin Stefanski. The Panthers, you might think, are an ascending team. Who knows what the Bucs are going to look like? My point is, strength of schedule only means so much. But at the same time, the Patriots ended up beating like 9 head coaches who got fired, or 9 games against head coaches that eventually got fired, plus the NFC South. But New England fans don't like and don't want to hear that. How much hate mail do you get?
Yeah, the comment sections on a lot of the articles are tough. No matter what, like just one week, some team will think I hate them. Then the next week, that another fan base will think I'm like biased towards the team that I hated last week. So yeah, you just kind of have to tune it out. Like, I'm going to make it any fan base, I'll make them happy. Probably once a year, I'll make them just as equally as mad as well. It's just part of, it's part of the job.
Of course. And we talk about football in the grand scheme of things, so who cares? Austin, before we move on from the Super Bowl, is there one number above all else that stands out to you that fans should keep an eye on? I don't mean like a line, an odd, but like one number from either side that stands out that you think is the most significant here. Like a metric in the matchup in the game?
Yeah. Is that what you mean by? Yeah.
Yes.
So the Seahawks have, I think, like, my rated best, I said defense, but their run defense is exceptional. From a success rate standpoint, how good they are down, and also from an EPA standpoint. So they don't give up explosives. They're very good in short yardage situations. The Patriots haven't, despite their passing offense has crushed people. The running game hasn't really got going. So that's kind of the matchup. Like, if they cannot run the ball at all and get those like early down success, we saw the Rams, why the Rams have been able to have success in the last 2 games against the Seahawks. They've been fantastic on first and second down, getting into third and short, third and medium even, to where the Seahawks can't be can't disguise as much, be exotic on defense. So that'll be the big matchup for me for the Patriots is, can they run the ball with what I think is kind of a below average rushing offense against the league's premier rushing defense? I think that's going to be key to kind of help out Drake May and that offensive line if they do get into passing situations and hold off that pressure from the Seahawks front.
And that backed itself up in the NFC Championship game. Stafford, great first and second down, not nearly as hot on third and fourth down. All right, Austin, let's move on to the top 50 that you have for the draft. We're a couple of months away. I can't believe it's draft season. Everyone's down in Mobile. You have 4 Buckeyes in your top 10. You have Arvell Reese, the linebacker, at number 1. You have at number 3 Caleb Downs, the safety, and you got Carnell Tate and Sonny Styles, wide receiver and linebacker, respectively, at 9 and 10. Explain the science behind putting this big board together.
Yeah, so this is a consensus big board. So I take a bunch of the experts out there in the space, our own, the Athletic Dane Brugler, a bunch of guys out there who specialize in the space. I try to make it most of those and kind of combine all of their opinions. And I do take some smaller, maybe not as seen as experts in the space, but I just try to combine a whole bunch of, 10 or so boards into one big board and kind of give a true representation of like, hey, here's what the temperature of the draft prospects are. And it follows suit for pretty much where we're going to land here. A lot will change over the next 3 months, but yeah, it's just a conglomerate of different boards that I throw together in to kind of give a good temperature on, who's a hot rising prospect or someone who's dropping down, because we do show the change from, the previous board to the next as well.
Yeah, and you had 2 guys who were in the playoff that in the top 5 that had big jumps from the last ranking. Mendoza went up 7. He's up to 2, so he was 9 in the previous rankings. And David Bailey went up from 12 to 5. My good friend Daniel Jeremiah over at NFL Network had Bailey going 6th overall in his first mock draft to the Browns, which people lost their minds in Cleveland. I'm like, guys, it's a mock. It's a couple of months out, and DJ has the first couple of tackles going ahead of 6. But just overall, how much did the playoff change your board when we finally got done?
Yeah, I think you see that pretty much year after year now is anybody who has a great playoff run. Again, it kind of makes sense. I know it's a small sample, so maybe it can be a little bit of fool's gold, but David Bailey's standpoint, and even a little bit of Mendoza too, is how many games, like in the Big 12, how many teams did David Bailey go up against where you were facing, elite offensive lines? So they wanted to kind of see that more. You got to play that game against Oregon, and he was very, very good in that game against Oregon. So it's like that was another data point. It was like, hey, he played against a good offensive line, and he kind of put Oregon, through the ringer there. He was constantly in that backfield. So I think we're going to see that more and more because, again, you're talking about the best teams in college football facing off. Sometimes you might get 2-3 looks. In Mendoza's case, he was fantastic throughout the whole playoff. So I think that's kind of the norm of what we're going to see is guys who have big playoffs are going to rise up. They're going to see their stock increase because all eyeballs are on those games rather than like a week 8 game at, Kansas State. How many, it's not as marquee for David Bailey in that matchup. Whereas the playoff, everybody's watching.
Yeah, there's so many data points here as well. Like the Senior Bowl, for example, I mentioned Lee Hunter has not been blocked, the big defensive tackle, the big, massive square dude who can not only stop the run, but get in the backfield and chase the quarterback. He is on your big board here. He was not previously ranked, but you have him at 47. I guarantee you Lee Hunter, after a couple of days in Mobile, before he undoubtedly, like a lot of these guys, tap out before the game on Saturday, the next time you do this board, he's a heck of a lot higher than 47.
Yeah, I would assume when you mentioned it, not only is he a huge body who can stop the run, but when you can do both, stop the run and create interior pressure and get after the quarterback at that size, it's just so rare. Like you don't see it very often. So those guys who are the rare type of, I think we saw it with Kenneth Grant last year from Michigan. He was huge and he went, the Dolphins took him at 13. I think I had my consensus report having a little bit lower. When you get those like athleticism, huge size guys that can rush the passer as well. Like the ceiling is so high, they're going to be guys that definitely jump up higher on the board as the draft process goes along.
It should be noted, and I've been warning people, Austin, that this might only be a one quarterback Thursday night by the time we get to Pittsburgh for night number 1. Ty Simpson at 26 with some injury concern.
Yeah, it's a weird. I'm trying to think. Like Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis was the last time we had this like little amount of quarterback prospects, and we saw Malik Willis drop out of the first round and not get taken at all. So it wouldn't be shocking at all. You mentioned it. The Simpson, he's one of those prospects that I think could boost himself back into like mid first round, just because again there's not a lot of quarterbacks. We saw with Jackson Dart last year because last year's quarterback class was a little bit smaller as well. But he's a guy through the first half of the year with Alabama, he was up there. He was QB1 for a lot of these experts. That's why he was ranked so high. And then whether it was injuries, whatever it was, second half of the year wasn't as great the last month or so. I think through this process, he will have probably the most to gain on this board just because there isn't a clear number QB2. Like there isn't, I don't know who QB3 is. Like, I don't know if there is a consensus QB3 at the moment. So he's one of those where if there's QB needy teams out there in the NFL, he's a guy that if he's impressive with his workouts, if he's impressive with his interviews, I could definitely see him climbing. I don't know if he'll shoot back up this board, but I think he could definitely improve his stock come April.
My money is on Nussmeier, and I know his season and LSU's season kind of went sideways, but he, to me, as I mentioned this yesterday on the show, is a guy that if he looks good in Mobile, he's there right now, then teams are going to go, oh yeah, we loved him a year ago. And you're going to have to find quarterbacks because there are more teams that need quarterbacks than there are quarterbacks available coming out in this draft. And you mentioned Malik Willis. I mean, he's the belle of the ball come the start of the new league year. But, you know, again, not every team could go get Malik Willis to all of a sudden magically solve their quarterback issues here in the offseason. Finally, just Austin, big picture here. Anything stand out to you in this coaching cycle, this very strange coaching cycle here with, as we record, Arizona and Vegas still looking?
Yeah, I think like Clint Kubiak is the last prize jewel out there. Obviously, nothing can happen with Seattle. That'll be interesting to see. It feels like he's probably going to one of those. So I feel like the Raiders maybe is more likely, but it was weird. Harbaugh gets a change. Then Monken, was going to be his OC, and then he's in Cleveland now.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, it was a weird process. Like it kind of came out of nowhere. Like it was not really. There was no buzz much about it, and then the Jim Schwartz fallout. The Browns are in a tough spot because I think you're kind of in a rebuild, which is tough because the defense is still pretty good. Myles Garrett's still playing at an elite level, but was there a little bit of like, hey, maybe the younger offensive mind, like Shieldhouse was a name that was involved. Maybe I can't imagine he didn't want it. I just thought it was a little odd to go the older coordinator look. I know Monken's had head coaching jobs in the past, but I did think that was a weird move for what they are and where they are as a franchise right now, and kind of like what their next 2-3 years look like. But yeah, I was a little surprised that I just thought they would have went young offensive mind again. But yeah, that was a little bit shocking for sure.
Yeah, I cut you off. You said your favorite, and then I jumped in. What's your favorite?
Jesse Minter to Baltimore. Okay. I think he's made some good hires with his supporting staff as well. I loved him coming out of Michigan. His defense was great. He turned the Chargers defense around, which I think was not as talented as we really wanted to give it credit for. I think, yeah, 2 years ago for sure. And he an immediate impact. So I think it's one of those things. We've seen the Ravens since Mike McDonald, former Michigan DC, left Baltimore. That defense has fallen off. So I think that could be one of those things. Again, they have a franchise quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in the league already in place. The defense is what really fell off this year. If he can get that turned around, again, he had Derwin James, nickel, corner, safety, hybrid piece. Now he gets Kyle Hamilton. So a lot of similarities there. I'm very interested to see how that works out for him in Baltimore.
Austin, what's the next thing you got coming up on The Athletic that we could pub here?
I have some probably more draft stuff. I don't like. Okay. I will have some like, yeah. It's. I don't have too much like Super Bowl things. Like we mentioned, the 63% Seahawks are the favorite. That's already out there. But yeah, there'll be more draft stuff. I'll be looking at a certain non-premier position player going into the draft. It's kind of my I do that every draft, like the top guys. So maybe Jeremiah Love, maybe Caleb Downs. I'll be kind of looking into the risk reward of drafting those guys in the top half of the first round.
They are both fantastic college players and no doubt fantastic pros, but for positional value, how high do you take a running back? How high do you take a safety? Right?
Yeah, that's what it is. Like 2 years ago, I did with Brock Bowers. He was one of the tight end. He slipped down to 13 last year. I did with Ashton Genty. He went 6. So we'll see what new position with Caleb Downs and safety, see where that kind of goes. Kyle Hamilton a couple years ago went 14. So that'll be, can Downs kind of take new heights for the safety position? That'll be interesting to see over the draft process. Cause they're both top 5, like easily top 5 prospects. Yeah. It's more about who's willing to, where's that threshold of positional value in terms of what they provide as a prospect as well.
Remember going back to Kyle Hamilton's rookie season where he did fall on the board a little bit, right? Whatever. Ravens got him. And everyone went, oh, of course, Ozzie and Eric DeCosta, they take the amazing player that falls to them. And then in the preseason, there was a coverage bust, or I don't remember what happened. But there was a deep touchdown in a preseason game when Hamilton was a rookie, and everybody blamed Kyle Hamilton. And the rush to judgment that, oh, this proves it. This is why he fell. Ravens got fooled. Like how stupid that seems in retrospect. Do you remember that?
Yep. I mean, similar, I know different, like premier position, but Jamar Chase with the drops was similar thing. Like don't over, like even like their rookie year, like we've seen rookies kind of, have to get their feet wet, then come back second year and do much better. Give them time. They're young players adjusting to a fast game. Don't overreact.
Absolutely. Always read Austin Mock. Always read The Athletic. Austin, we appreciate your time. 66% right now, or 67 on the Seahawks. I'm sure Patriots fans will love it. You know what? Be happy, people. You're at the Super Bowl. Austin, let's talk soon, man. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
You got it. Austin Mock, everybody, from The Athletic. And there is a show, friends. There is another edition of Inside Coverage here on Yahoo. We are back on Thursday with 3 of us. It is our normal, big, happy triumvirate on Thursday with no game or games to predict. Maybe we'll do a Senior Bowl preview show for Saturday. I have no idea. But I guarantee you this. It's going to be fun. And we'll see you then. For Austin and for JJ Jansen of the Panthers, I'm Andrew Siciliano. So long, everybody.